Welcome back to Explaining Everything, the channel where we dive into the stories and mysteries behind everyday things. Today's question comes from one of our curious viewers. Sophie knows it all. Thanks for the suggestion, Sophie. You asked, why does our voice sound different in recordings? If you've ever heard yourself on a voicemail or hit play on a recording and thought, is that really what I sound like? Then this video is for you. We're going to crack open the science behind why your voice can sound so alien when it's played back to you. So, if you've ever wondered why your voice sounds different from what you hear in your head, or if you're just trying to stop cringing at your own recordings, stick around as we break down the mystery of your recorded voice, right here on Explaining Everything. Let's start by addressing the obvious. When you hear your voice in a recording, it probably doesn't match what you think it sounds like, and you're not alone. Most of us are shocked when we hear our own voices played back. You might even cringe a little, like your voice is doing a bad stand-up comedy routine at your expense. The reason for this discrepancy comes down to the way sound travels and the way we hear it. Normally, when you speak, the sound of your voice is traveling through the air to your ears. But here's the kicker. It's also traveling through your skull. Yup, you're getting a double dose of your voice, and the second dose is messing with your mind. When you hear yourself speak naturally, the sound vibrations hit your inner ear, but they also bounce around inside your head and travel through your bones. This is known as bone conduction, and it makes your voice sound deeper and richer to you than it really is. So, when you play back a recording, you're only hearing the sound that traveled through the air, which is higher pitched and thinner. It's like your voice went on a diet without telling you. To fully grasp this, let's break down the two ways we hear sound. First, there's the airwave method, where sound travels through the air and enters your ear canal. This is what a recording captures. But then there's the skullwave method, where sound travels through your bones and directly to your inner ear. When you hear your voice live, you're hearing both methods at once, which makes you sound like a booming baritone, whether or not you're actually Justin Timberlake. On the other hand, when you listen to a recording of yourself, you only get the airwave version, the one that doesn't involve your bones. It's like watching a superhero movie, but only seeing the movie from the perspective of the villain's henchman. Not as exciting, right? Now, this wouldn't be such a big deal if we were all hearing our voices from a third-party perspective. But the problem is, you're stuck with it. You've been listening to yourself the skullwave way for years, so your brain has gotten used to it. It's like you've been walking around with a custom voice filter that makes you sound like a smooth jazz DJ. But when you hear your recorded voice, it's like your brain suddenly realizes that you've been walking around sounding like a chipmunk. It's jarring. Your brain goes into panic mode, and you think, who is that? Is that me? It's like someone suddenly pointed out that your reflection in the mirror is actually a little less attractive than you thought. It's one of those moments where you can't unsee it. Okay, so we've talked about the physical reasons why your voice sounds different, but there's also a psychological element that plays into it. When you hear your voice on a recording, you're likely to scrutinize it. It's like the audio version of a selfie. You'll focus on the little things you don't like. Why do I sound so nasally? Or did I just say like too many times? But let's be real. Everyone else is just hearing your voice as it actually sounds, and they don't have the luxury of hearing the deep, smooth version of your voice that you get in your head. They're hearing the real deal, the airwave version. They're probably not cringing at every word you say like you are. The funny thing is, we don't even notice the slight differences in other people's voices. But we'll totally judge our own voices like Simon Cowell after a bad audition. So, when you think about it, you're probably the only one who's actually bothered by how your voice sounds in a recording. Everyone else is just like, "Yep, sounds like Steve." Now, let's throw one more wrench into the mix: the recording equipment. Whether you're using a phone, a mic, or a Zoom call, the tech involved can affect how your voice is captured. For example, some mics might distort the higher frequencies, making your voice sound even thinner than it actually is. Meanwhile, your phone's built-in microphone might make you sound like you're speaking from the bottom of a well. It's all part of the fun. But don't blame the technology too much. Even professional recording equipment can't fix the fact that your brain is expecting the skullwave version of your voice and getting the airwave version instead. If you're still reeling from this whole voice revelation, don't worry. There are ways to embrace it. First, remember that everyone has a similar experience. Your voice doesn't sound weird. It just sounds different from what you're used to. It's all part of being a human. And let's be honest, no one ever sounds as good as they think they do. I mean, have you ever tried to listen to a voicemail you left 5 years ago? Yikes. Secondly, if you really can't stand hearing your voice recorded, just try to get used to it. Listen to recordings of yourself more often. The more you hear your true voice, the less shocking it becomes. You may even start to like it. It's like getting used to a new pair of glasses. At first, you look like a different person, but soon you'll realize that person is actually you. And there you have it, the science behind why our voices sound so different in recordings. It's a mix of physical science and psychological weirdness. But hey, at least you now know it's not just you. It's physics and your brain playing tricks. Next time you hear a recording of yourself, don't cringe. Just remember, you're hearing the airwave version, not the cool skullwave remix that you're used to. If this video made you appreciate your voice more, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for tuning in, and join us next time here in the channel that answers all the why, what, who, where, and how questions you've always wondered about. Here on Explaining Everything.